Welcome everyone to this webinar hosted by UAW Member Action. Stewards and committee people are often the main point of contact between members and our union. And that means being a listener, a communicator, problem solver, and an organizer. Being a steward or committee person is more than just filing grievances and enforcing contract language. It's about building a stronger union from the membership on up. Today, we'll be hearing from a few UAW stewards and committee people about the tools and approaches they have used to address workplace issues and how they've gone beyond the grievance process to collectively solve problems. If this is your first webinar with us, welcome. UAW Member Action is a network of UAW members. Our goal is to support each other as we fight for stronger contracts, enforce our existing contracts, and make positive changes in our union by exercising our rights. On today's agenda, we're going to hear from a few of our steward panelists. Then we'll have time to ask some questions at the end. Please ask questions using the Q&A button rather than the chat window. And if you have a particular question for a panelist, make sure to address them in your questions. We can direct it appropriately. Now, as stewards and committee people, you may spend a lot of time handling grievances for your members, and that is a major responsibility as being the point person between members and our union, and important for enforcing the contract. But stewards and committee people also have the task of building up the union as organizers. Part of that is engaging members and moving people to take action. The organizing bullseye is one way we can conceptualize where our membership is at. Let's use contract campaigns as an example. Think of who is talking to members about their bargaining priorities and making a plan to get members in motion. Who is setting up a practice picket schedule? These are our core group of organizers and can include the bargaining team, rank and file members, standing committee members, stewards, or committee people. They are always thinking about ways to get people involved. And the next ring of our bullseye are the activists. These are members who take responsibility and can be counted on to help get the word out when an issue arises in our workplace. They'll be the ones that are spreading the word that a bargaining survey is circulating or there's a petition to sign. After that, the ring of supporters. These are the people that are pro-union. They'll show support. They'll wear a pro-union button. They'll wear a red shirt on Red Shirt Wednesdays, or they'll sign a petition. But they don't really want to get anyone else involved. They're not going to be talking to other members. And lastly, this is the disengaged members. This is probably a majority of the members at your workplace. They don't really see the union as being a big part of their everyday life. They may show support, but they're not going to be talking to other people. Lastly are the people that are hostile and anti-union. We're not going to waste our time arguing with them. So our job is to move people from the outer rings of the circle towards the center and get people more involved, one step at a time. So here's an example of what the bullseye may look like in your union right now, especially if you aren't in the middle of a big contract campaign or another big contract fight. Members tend to float into the disengaged layer of the bullseye. It would be really overwhelming to try to move everyone immediately to the center all at once. And it probably wouldn't work very well either. If someone has never been involved in the union before, you wouldn't want your first ask of them to be, will you be my backup steward or alternate? So we have to be very strategic about how we get people involved and take action. The best way to move members towards the center of the bullseye is to make the right ask to get them involved. So if a member is disengaged, ask them to sign on to a group grievance. Ask them to get their coworker to sign. Slowly, we're moving people from the disengaged layer to the support layer, and then from the support layer to activist, until our bullseye looks more like this on the screen. The more people that are actively supporting than are disengaged and hostile means that you're shifting the balance of power in your workplace. So today we're going to hear from some stewards and committee people on how they have been able to engage with their members and use approaches outside of just the grievance procedure, to make this shift happen in their workplace. So now let me introduce today's speakers. First is Paul Davidson, who has worked at Stellantis Transport as a member of Local 212 for 15 years. Paul is a second shift steward for the mechanics, switchers, and truck drivers who move parts between Stellantis plants from Windsor, Canada to Toledo, Ohio. Lately, Paul's been on a mission to revive his local standing committee. Over the past few months, he has helped to recruit over 24 members to join the standing committee. Next is JJ Jewell, who has been at Ford Sterling Axle with UAW Local 228 for 13 years and is on his second term as District 1 committee person. JJ is one of the founding members of the UAW Region 1 Men's Council and has served on numerous standing committees at the local level, focusing especially on CAP and education. And last but not least is Sydney Campbell, who has worked at the University of California, Los Angeles as a postdoc researcher with UAW Local 4811 for 4 years. She has been a steward since 2023 and was a head steward from 2024 to 25. Sydney is active in organizing on the organizing committee and has been a strike captain. Thank you for all agreeing to share your stories today. Let's see. Paul, would you be willing to get us started? We may have some technical issues. Okay. Paul is working as a steward at this very moment and had to deal with an emergency. So JJ, if you would be so kind as to step in while he is dealing with his steward duties.
No problem. Thank you, Allie. So again, everyone, my name is James Jewell. I go by JJ. I am at UAW Local 228. I've been there since October of 2012, currently under President Doug Chartier. As she shared, I'm on my second term as a district committee rep. That's about 300 people in a machining/assembly district in a building that basically serves as a supplier. We build axles for Ford Motor Company. I also a former trustee chair, 2 terms on the executive board as a member at large. I've been doing the whole tour of administrative versus bargaining roles over there. Also, again, need to give a shout out. I'm one of the founding members of the UAW Region 1 Men's Council, which has been kicking it very strong under the leadership of the chair, Stephen Kennedy, and of course, our awesome Region 1 director, LaShawn English. And one of the heaviest things I've been involved in is CAP since I've hired in and become a UAW member. In discussing this webinar with Becca and the other UAW member action people here, I was asked to prepare something good to talk about when doing member outreach in particular, and my district has been crucial without just handling grievances. So the internal organizing, the networking, the communication back and forth to handle everyday issues. First, I'd like to go over what member outreach looks like to me in doing my job and just in being a UAW member overall. It's important to not just have the door open for that as a steward, as a committee person, as a leader, but to be proactively keeping in touch with people and communicating with members that might not be bringing problems to you. Sometimes you kind of have to find them when they're already there. That's important because it builds trust between them and you as a leader. It builds trust between the membership and the UAW leadership, the union overall. And it educates the members because they might be getting answers, or where they had answers, they might be getting fuller answers, more accurate answers where they wouldn't have before. And honestly, it's one way to help develop other leaders once you have that back and forth going on. So other than the obvious, which is walking through your districts, your departments, or however your job as a steward is set up in your building, other than just walking and talking to people, I've made it a part of my job to carve out parts of my day when possible, which is not always possible. But when you have that privilege to carve time out for something I call casual constituent time, and it's literally you don't have too many fires going on, there's nothing extremely urgent, and you're carving time out literally to just talk and organize, basically. When I'm doing that, it's very intentional to be less problem solving. I mean, of course, if someone brings something to you, you have to handle it when appropriate, but it's less problem solving and more open discussion. So whether it's one-on-ones with someone on their job on the line or wherever you bump into them, whether it's in break rooms, whether it's at the timesheets, we call them draughts at Ford Sterling Axle, where people congregate to look at, make sure they were paid right, see the schedule for the weekend, those sort of areas where conversation just naturally happens between people, kind of injecting yourself in there when the mood's right, right? This is especially useful for sharing information on situations that are currently happening, problems or good things, but when they're across different areas and different shifts. So instead of the micro, just your department that you're stewarding or your district, hearing those things and having the conversations go on that are for your whole building, if not for your whole national contract, if not for the UAW overall. Um, but then part two of that is especially when it's items that the membership might not be extremely well versed on for the language or how it applies to actually their day-to-day life or enforcing it or possibly grieving it. That part B is especially likely when there's significant changes to parts of the language or how it's used now that affect the day in, day out lives of our members. They might be stuck on thinking about how things used to go, right? So that brings us to my example of member outreach that I wanted to share with you guys and call it in this exercise and learning some of the tools that UAW Member Action's been helping to teach and push lately. So not too long ago, my building, and it's coming out, it sounds like other facilities as well, was dealing with a pretty obvious crackdown on vacation scheduling of all things. So how many people can be off at a time? That looks like different ways. You heard it right. So the company is deciding to severely reduce the amount of people that are allowed to be scheduled off in advance using their contractually bargained and seniority earned vacation and personal time. So what led to that problem in my mind is we don't really have concrete language on how many people are allowed to be pre-scheduled off. There's vague language that helps handle who gets approved. So, first come, first serve. If people literally come at the same time, which may be the same day, seniority order, which there's fairness there, but not really anything on how many people. The most relevant piece of language we have is under management's right, and then the section for denying vacation time and so on. And it literally just says, if in its judgment, it being management, the exigencies of production so require. So basically, in English, that means if they feel like it might impact their running of the business, they're able to say no. I hate those answers, but when they're in black and white, that's what the answers are, right? So that's very open to abuse or mismanagement or a number of other things that impact our members when they sincerely need or what they want a day off, work-life balance, and so on. The company went through several different terrible iterations of this practice in a short period of time. So this problem, I don't want to say it's solved, but this problem's overall much better now. But there was a very harsh few weeks, if not a little over a month, where things were just terrible in there. Let me walk you guys through the first two terrible iterations that they did to begin with. The first was one person off per department per day, which, if you're not familiar with a workplace like ours, might not sound terrible, but there's certain variables that it is absolutely just not acceptable. Let's say you have a department of 40 people, one person off, they were going to be able to run the business anyways. They just chose an arbitrary number and went with it. But now let's get technical. One person off per department per day, that didn't mean per shift. So if you're a person, excuse any wording, that's just on the line on day shift, you're not some special classification. You're not a job setter. You're not the team leader for the department. You're a assembly worker on day shift. Unfortunately, you can't have the day off for your kid's high school graduation. The job setter on midnights has that day off already. So you can't have that day off. That made no business sense, let alone it was very unfair and just bad for the membership. Um, and there was zero chance of it even impacting, one person's day off impacting the other on any level. There were very real circumstances for that, where let's say I had one person who it took fight. It shouldn't have taken fighting, but it took fighting and it got done. But the stewards would have to go to bat and fight for like people's chemo appointments to have that day off because someone else already had the day off. Or again, things like graduations, regular doctor's appointments, a lot of forced Saturdays and all that were 9 and 10 hour shifts, and some people just needed the day off because they're burnt out. That was example one. They then pivoted and softened up a little bit before the war really got on, and they started doing one person per shift per department. So business sense, it's a little more fair. It's defendable, but again, sometimes that still doesn't do. There's some departments of, let's say, 30 people. One out of every 30 people is allowed off per day. It was still drastically impeding work-life balance. And even more, it was statistically impossible for every UAW member, every Ford employee, to use all of their vacation time per year because the math just doesn't work out. If they had stuck with that, they were going to be writing a lot of cash out checks every December or June that's when your vacation time rolls over. So at this point, we had already been fighting back, but we started becoming a little more laser focused, which at the steward level, not the chair, not the bargaining team, but at the district level, it's in the trenches, just basically causing good trouble and fighting it, hoping it helps the war above you, right? So my casual constituent time very much became talking to members in their break areas, the startup meetings, and so on about vacation scheduling. Just naturally, didn't even need to bring it to them. It's what was being brought to me. I chose to begin educating members on other rights and tools. If you ever want to attack, and this goes up again, big cap guy, if you ever want to attack legislation or a practice in the workplace, you don't just take the headline head on. You start poking holes in it and showing them their plan doesn't work. And you be a dick about it. Okay? As petty as possible, but in a way that helps people, helps your people. So, there's a few things that I was very directly, intentionally engaging people on, educating them on, or if they already knew, helping to make sure people know that's the play right now. We're in a game, and that's what we should be doing to fight back against it. So, three major things, just as examples to help do that. New UAW Ford national contract, you're able to call in with vacation or personal time. Before it was only personal. But now it's 60 hours of call-in time per calendar year. So January 1st through December 31st. A lot of people weren't familiar with that. They were thinking, I'm out of personal time, I can't call in, etc. Now you're able to use both. So as long as you haven't called in for 60 hours per year, you're good. There's other requirements. If you've gone through the attendance progression, you've served RW 2 weeks for AWOLs already, you can't call in. But other than that, if you haven't climbed there, as long as you properly you notify the company, so you've used the attendance line at least 30 minutes before your shift, you're good. So there's a lot of people, they haven't, 25 years in, they've never had an AWOL in their life. They don't want to get one. They denied your vacation day for fill in the blank, very important thing to you. No one's room to judge. You have every right to call in. No, seriously, just do it. They're denying your day. I've already gone to bat. One person's already off, the guy on midnights that doesn't even do your job, so you can't have the day off. Call in on Friday. You're all set. There was a lot of encouraging that. Second, FMLA, which that one's huge and fun to work with, but not in the way that you would think. This is federal law that a lot of people are familiar with in a pretty vague sense. It applies to us all. When the company began cracking down on vacation scheduling, it was kind of natural for our frontline reps to educate members who were acquiring absences due to chronic illnesses, due to appointments, due to all those sort of things. It's our responsibility, or at least I feel it is, to guide them towards FMLA when appropriate. But it doesn't just end with I can't work this day or I have this going on or I don't want to work, so call an FMLA. This federal legislation is very, very underappreciated, and it is a multi-purpose tool. So on my weekends when I'm in the plant, it's like on-call firefighter. If there's nothing going on, you're good and you're just there. I repeatedly read the national contract. First time, just read it. Second time, highlight it. Third time, write my notes and more. But I came across a letter of understanding that lays out compliance with FMLA. I just saw a comment we'll get to later, but Sedgwick is terrible and they're my arch nemesis. The letter specifies employees are permitted but not required to substitute vacation and or excused absence allowance for FMLA leave. What does this mean in our ongoing fight on this vacation scheduling? For those who already have FMLA approved, so right now you have the day off when you call in. You're good. We're not talking about that part right now. We were also able to make the company use their vacation and personal time, regardless of who else was already pre-scheduled for that day. So if they already had the one and you call an FMLA, now you have a vacation that day. It's pulling from both of them. You've burned up vacation and FMLA, but you got the vacation day off. HR didn't appreciate me bringing light to this. But even more, and especially this year, again, with so many forced Saturdays, so many 9 and 10 hour shifts, and so on, salt on their wound, and this helped get it going a little bit. I'm not going to pretend that my examples of these poking holes won the war, and that's why we can get the vacation day scheduled. But yes, it helped. We all need to be doing that, and I don't just mean the stewards. Salt on the wound when you go that route with the FMLA and with the vacation time being you are entitled to use it, even if you burned the 60 hours, they must allow you to use the time you have if you've used FMLA, if you so choose. It also protects overtime for the week. So you've burned your 60 hours. You have to call in FMLA for your chemo appointment. You tried to pre-schedule, but they wouldn't give it to you. Now you called in FMLA and also used your vacation. Now you're not working for straight time on Saturday anymore. That's one of those several holes to poke in that starts getting attention. Last number three, I find it boring. I don't love to encourage it, but it is a tool, and when you have a toolbox and need to use the hammer, sometimes you do it. Our new attendance program, the first three AWOLs every calendar year are freebies. There is no discipline. There's not a write-up, there's not time off. Very ironic right now is hunting season in Michigan, and a lot of guys are getting their, or guys and girls are getting their first AWOL or three for the year, and they're going to go away January 1st. It's calendar year. You have perfect attendance. You get three per year. So you use one for your kid's graduation party or your chemo appointment or shooting deer, and they go away January 1st. So no shame in my game here as a rep, as an educator, organizer, and union member. If you're a worker who never gets AWOLs, you have them to spare, you've saved your vacation time for that honeymoon trip or whatever with your spouse, your concert you had to go to, or forbid the other examples we keep using on, absolutely encouraging members or advising them or educating them that they do have room for an AWOL or two with minimal consequences. You have a responsibility in that role that if someone does have AWOLs already, to educate them on where they're at and what it will mean. If you already have 4, 5, 6 and got discipline before it and you're up for time off, maybe don't take that AWOL if you don't drastically need to, but so on. So after many, many battles like those examples at the district level, where our reps would have to individually fight to try to get the vacation scheduled ahead of time, or if not, give these tools, mixed with plenty of arguments, negotiations, and of course, going to bat from the plant chairman and bargaining committee at their level, helped by our good trouble. The policy now is to a pretty healthy spot. Absolutely, the tools we're talking about helped to get there. Um, Overall, each individual department and shift, call it, and I'm rounding for the purpose of education and not just trying to share all of our internal business, but call it 10% per department. So if you have 30 people instead of one, it's three. That's doable. Maybe not perfect. They do have to run their business too, but it gets by. And then if we need to, we can use these tools, even though the policy is more fair now. The good trouble of not only educating, but mobilizing members to use their rights and tools that are granted, absolutely always helps to fight those bigger battles. So that's what we did.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing that story, JJ. I'm kind of curious, do you have a network of activists that you can call on to like educate the people that they work with? Because I'm sure it would be very difficult for you to meet with everyone in your plant to tell them about these details about the vacation policy.
Do you mean within 228 particular? Because I was going to say you
Yeah.
guys, and then at first, I wouldn't say bona fide officially, but a very natural, organic level. I think as let me mini rant for a second. 1994, 1996. Those are some primary years that a lot of people hired in the big three in Michigan and especially in our plant. And we're on that wave soon. I can't say that we're going to have a drastic cliff of retirements, but very huge numbers are coming. And the cliche, it's going to be you guys soon. You're going to be taking the helm and leading. That's coming very fast. So we're trying to get ahead on all those moving pieces, not just for elected or appointed leadership, but who's going to be holding this up. And with some of the cultural changes in the UAW over the past 3 years, it is more grassroots and mass membership driven than, let's say, 10 years ago. It's not the 30 or 40 leaders and then no one else is empowered or doing anything. It's we're still feeling out what that looks like. So it's not an on paper form or structure, but it's including a lot more people. And let's just say it's a much more open door policy. Like right now, 10 years ago, and I'm not saying it was the overall culture, but it wouldn't have been shocking if a member, and not just in our building, if a member tried to ask a rep a question just to learn more or whatever, and the answer was, shut up, I already solved it for you, or something similar. That's not what this is supposed to be about. I solved it for you. Here's how else we could have handled it. Here's how you can handle it on your own next time. Not to dismiss you, but you have the power to do that too. All this stuff I just said in my part of the webinar, members could have done on their own. I'm happy to help them do that. Not so I don't have to do anything, but because we're all better off that way.
Yeah, I think it feels a lot better when you're able to help solve the problem with someone and they feel ownership over like that grievance or, that win. It feels a lot better and more empowering. Uh, yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, I think Paul may still be dealing with an emergency as a steward. Hats off to him. Sydney, would you be okay sharing your story next?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much, JJ, for sharing first. Um, yeah, so my name is Sydney, as Ali mentioned. I'm a member of UAW Local 4811. I work at UCLA. A little bit of background for folks who don't know is UAW 4811 represents academic workers across all 11 University of California campuses. And that means that our local is about 48,000 people across the state. And so, as you can imagine, we're pretty spread out and pretty diverse in our composition. For a little bit of background as well, I work as a postdoctoral researcher, which for folks who are unfamiliar with that position, it basically means that I'm a scientist at an academic institution. There's all kinds of postdocs who work as not just scientists, but also researchers in other areas that do things like write books or design prosthetic limbs for veterans, that kind of thing. Personally, I do cancer research. And so that presents, well, it's really a cool and exciting place to work. It does present a lot of challenges when it comes to organizing. For one, we have a lot of different job titles to work with that have different bargaining units. So we have our graduate students that you can kind of think of as like the entry level workers in academia, as well as the postdocs, and then people who are more senior and maybe have been there for longer. We all work not just across the state, but even at UCLA, we work in all different buildings, frequently on all different schedules. Some of us are entirely remote. Some of us work in a hybrid situation. And either way, we're spread out across labs and locations. And we also face pretty high turnover. So I would say like the average tenure is not, this is anecdotal, not a mathematical measurement, but I think the average tenure for an academic worker at UC is probably close to 3 or 4 years. So, someone comes in, they might be engaged for 3 to 4 years and then they're moving on. So this presents some unique challenges with, or maybe not necessarily unique, but can feel unique challenges when it comes to organizing that I think we've come up with some creative solutions to solve, and hopefully it can be useful to folks in other workplaces as well. Because when we're so siloed as we are, it makes it a lot easier for the boss to take advantage of us, not just campus to campus, but even within our own campus when it comes to treating departments differently, that kind of thing. And so one solution that we've had for a long time is hosting regular coffee hours. So sort of having it more centralized places on campus where people can take a break and come get some coffee. And that's where we sort of like a casual meeting, like JJ was saying, to talk about maybe problems that are going on in their lab or problems that are going on in their department. And we can kind of learn more about what they're facing and come up with brainstorm solutions together, as well as just meet people from different regions of campus that we might not interact with. This very much works alongside walkthroughs, which are pretty standard, but in our case, it means like going into all of the different physical buildings and walking around the different labs and making sure we talk to everybody. But a more formalized solution that we've come up with recently has kind of sprung out of the graduate students being in bargaining right now. So the graduate students are bargaining their contract. My unit, the postdoc unit, is not in bargaining, but the graduate students had come up with an idea for what they're calling a contract action team, or a CAT program, which is basically identifying folks who might be leaders in their department or in their lab and training them with knowledge of how bargaining works and how organizing works to sort of prime them to be able to spring into action at any given time. And so we saw that they were building this team in their unit that was very much centered on bargaining, but we thought that that was a good solution for some of our problems, which is just having people very spread out and not necessarily engaged at any one time. So we're calling our version the collective action team, still the same acronym, CAT, the same CAT program, but collective action team. And the way that this works is we identify folks either on walkthroughs or at these coffee hours that we have who seem keen to engage or seem fired up about a particular issue, but maybe don't necessarily have experience organizing and aren't familiar with sort of, they know that they have A, they want to get to B, but they don't necessarily know how we can get from A to B and like how to harness the power of collective action to do that. And so we have like a short PowerPoint that we have made, because academics love PowerPoint, but we have a short PowerPoint that we've made to sort of explain how organizing works, how our collective power will enable us to get the things that we want in bargaining, and sort of how we can better engage people to be able to achieve these goals. And so this has been, it's definitely a work in progress, but I think the way that it works is we invite them to meet with us to like kind of go over this training. And then we make progressive asks of them. So sort of like what Allie was talking about in the beginning with respect to the bullseye. A first ask might be helping us to orient a new worker and explain to them what the union is, because our union's only been around since 2009. So like we still have to teach a lot of people about like what the postdoc union is and why it's important for them to sign up as a G-string member. So orientation is a good first ask. A next ask might be to join us on a walkthrough and join us in going and talking to their coworkers. We almost always center those around some type of vehicle, whether it's preparing for bargaining or a petition or something of that nature. And then from there, they might go on to bottom line a phone bank or to help us with a grievance or something, sort of bringing them more into that core group of organizers as they get more experienced in kind of the basics of organizing. And so I think that what this has really enabled us to do is to mount campaigns a lot faster than we would be able to do otherwise, because we have a network of people that we can call on and say, here's what's happening. We got to get people on board right now. And so it's sort of like a phone tree for I'm always explaining to our Gen Z people like what a phone tree is, because obviously those don't exist anymore. But it's sort of, you can just not text people, but it's sort of a way to say, okay, these are kind of our point people in the departments, and then those people in the departments will be able to better disseminate the message, because getting the message from them is going to be more effective than getting like a mass email that then they do or do not read. And so I think that this has been effective recently, in that the University of California system is very much operating in an austerity mindset right now, and is really trying to chip away both at jobs as well as making sure people are paid what they're supposed to be paid. And so because we have these point people in these departments, we're able to keep better track of kind of who might be vulnerable or who might be being taken advantage of. And we're able to say quickly, no, you can't do that, and either file a grievance or mount mount a collective action campaign to increase visibility and say that you're not going to be able to do this in secret. Say the boss that you're not going to be able to do this in secret. And so, yeah, like I said, it's definitely not a perfect system. It's very much a work in progress. We have spreadsheets that we use to keep track of who the cats are and sort of what tasks they've completed and what asks might be helpful to do next. But yeah, I think that's a strategy that we've undertaken as a local.
That's really great, Sydney. I love to see a work in progress. It's always fun to find out like where we can go next with a new thing. So like bringing people into the bullseye, it sounds like there's a lot of different people all over the place. How do you keep track of who is where when you have so many people you have to organize?
Yes, that's a great question. So each campus has our own spreadsheet, set of spreadsheets that we use, because as I mentioned, there's 11 campuses that each need to keep track of where their CAP program is. And we have a list of names with information on their department, their building, because sometimes it makes more sense to organize as a department. Sometimes it makes more sense to organize this as a building, what building you work in. You know, I'm sure people can appreciate that there's different levels of association depending on the scenario. And then we have columns of checkboxes that say, has done an orientation, has led an orientation, has done a walkthrough, has led a walkthrough, has, and sort of keeping track of those different things. We also keep track of who kind of the mentor for these people might be. So we call our standing committee our organizing committee. It's very similar in concept, but we typically someone from the organizing committee will kind of serve as a mentor for these people that are coming up through the ranks. And so we also keep track of who that person is and check in with each other as far as like how the development of these new leaders is coming along. So and then sort of at the last thing is then at the statewide level, we've been getting better about checking in with each other, and we recently did sort of a self-assessment at each campus of where our leadership development programs are at, ranking on a 1 to 3 scale of sort of how things are going, and talk to each other about it, right? I think that's sort of like the most important thing is that, you know, especially like you're saying when something's a work in progress, it's easy to feel like it's not going well, and it's easy to feel like, oh, we're failing at XYZ thing, and like we got to get better. But I think that talking to each other, sometimes you solve the problem that maybe somebody else hasn't figured out how to solve. And so I think that, and vice versa. And so I think that talking to each other and having these statewide meetings is also really important. So yeah, it is a lot. It's a lot of a spreadsheet, but we're happy to share. I'm sure we're happy to share our spreadsheets with anybody that wants them. So yeah, definitely like reach out and we can get you going on a CAP program if you're interested in doing that.
Thanks. We appreciate your willingness to share, especially within the UAW and all the other stewards we have here. Okay, thank you, Sydney. Paul, are you okay to join us now? I hope everything is going okay at Sterling Stamping today, but if you're ready to share your story, we're ready to listen.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. It's already been a long day, and I just got here. With LCH transport, like last of the big three that actually has a transportation unit. I've been doing this off and on for 37 years. I started off at the Detroit News. If anybody knows anything about the JOA and the strike that happened in 1995, I was 19 short there. And there was a lot of factors that got me involved that I wanted to get involved. Just like I do with a lot of the my alternates. I have a lot of alternates. I don't have a lot of alternates because I need them. Only need one alternate, but I try to train as many people as possible. And when I worked at the news, a gentleman named Joel Wilson came up to me and started asking me questions. He had heard me talk about a bunch of union things that I weren't too happy about back then when I was a mailer for the Detroit News, dating back to the 80s. And he saw something. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he started asking me questions. We started having media local asking me to look up a couple of things. I'm a young 20-something-year-old man. You know, what are young 20-something-year-old people thinking about and doing anyway? Work, party. And I started answering some of these things, and he asked me, do you want to get involved? And back in those days, they use that term all the time. Do you want to get involved? And I asked him, what do you mean about getting involved? You want to be more than just like, do you want to be a union rep? I gave it a thought. I signed out my stuff for Wayne State Labor Studies, downtown Detroit, and really the rest is history. Um, the one thing I do, I probably have about I actually have 7 alternates. Again, all I need is one. I don't need 7. I'm a 60-year-old man. I'll be 60 in a few days. You got to one. What I tell these people, you got to want to do this. Number 2, somebody has to do it. Where do you think most of your UAW presidents came from? They probably started off as union stewards. Think about that for a minute. It all is generally probably a few percentage that didn't, but most of your presidents of any union probably start off as a union steward. This is where it starts. This is where you get these people encouraged and involved to do things. And I think I'm pretty good at doing that. I'm busy, and this day has just been something. I started 2 o'clock. It's not even 4 o'clock yet. But I get these people involved. I get them to understand why it's important for them to do it because somebody has to do this. Sometimes you get a lot of people also who do it for the wrong reasons. In our case, I'm a truck driver for Stellantis. Someone want to just get out of a truck. In most of your people's cases, they just want to get off the assembly line. That's the wrong That's the wrong reason to do this. And you're never going to be successful when you do that. You gotta want to do this. You seek these people out as best you can. You try to gauge what their personality is and are they really serious about doing it. And then you encourage them, and then you nurture them, and then you get them their training. The 6 or 7 alternates that I have, they're going to be running for position coming up next May. A lot of them are getting involved with community services. This is what this thing also does as far as learning how to be a union steward. You get involved in so many other ways also. It can be aggravating and it can be extremely rewarding. You do it your first time doing your grievance and you win it. There's a high, but you don't sit up here and you take credit for it. You don't go out there and thump your chest and say, hey, I did this. You want it, you go about your business and you go to the next thing. I try to get these people and keep them humble at the same time. Don't go out there advertising yourself like a politician. And like quite literally, when you think about it in the end, a few years down the line as a union rep, you kind of are a politician to a way, but you keep it to yourself. You keep doing the work. Maybe one day you do end up being president of your local. Maybe one day you end up being president of an international in our case. Everything starts with being at the union steward level, and then you move up. But you got to make sure these people want to do this for the right reasons. They want to get the training. When you retire, I'll probably retire in 5 years. Those people will take the training that I gave them. They're going to pass it on. And the people they pass it on to, they will pass it on to the next generation of stewards. That's how I would look at it.
Thank you, Paul. Do you have any good tips on how you're able to develop a representative, network of stewards at your workplace? I know you've shared with us in the past that your shop hasn't always had diverse leadership that is reflective of the membership. How have you been able to change that? And what are some of the effects that it's had on the strength of your union?
By force. When I walked in here and I started date 7/7/2010. I don't know why I do that, but I always do that. And when I walked in here, there was very few people of color. I was shocked. Women, forget about it. We had 2 or 3 women, but then you looked at the union reps, we had 20 position reps, your union stewards, the president. I mean, no inclusion whatsoever. None. Took a couple years, learn the lay of the land, and then I'm like, this is not going to stand. I didn't have this at the Detroit News as a union steward. I'm not going to have it here. So I wrote out, I thought out a plan. I got with other people who actually saw this and wanted to do something about it. And as time went by and as the old school truck drivers, we call them, started to retire, they started bringing in more people. We got a lot more people of color, got a lot more women, especially with the women. I got 12 women here. I should have at least 30, 40 women here. But we just aggressively started recruiting these people. This place was, let me just say this. The place that I'm at was built in 1965. That's when they came here. Ironically, I was born in 65. They have never had a woman rep at all. We have one now. This lady is going to be good. Her name is Julie Pierce. She's one of my alternates. I never had a woman rep here. We have one now. I think this lady is going to be great at what she does. She's already did a few changes, and this is as an alternate. She's not even an elected official. She's already changed the smoking policy here. Yes, she went through Auburn Hills. She did all the protocol. I mean, just a really brilliant young lady, and I'm proud of that. But yes, I don't care who you are. You can be white, black, woman, man. Anybody who wants to be a union rep, especially where I'm at, speaking of me, I will train. There'll be people in the end that may not be cut out to do this. That's fine, but they should be allowed to have the opportunity to see if they can do more than just be an employee, be a union rep. And this is what I do here. I've got a lot of pushback. I won't get too much into the negative part of it. I got a lot of pushback. At the same time, I got a lot of people coming in here asking what to do. Should I go to Wayne State? Should I go labor studies? I always tell them Wayne State. I just like Wayne State. And I got people, they not want to be union reps, but they want to get involved with their local union now. They want to get involved with their shop. So we got a lot of volunteer stuff going on. We got a lot of people that are, especially with these standing committees, although it's taking a while to get them going the right way, that are really coming up with good ideas. This place has never had that. And I mean, we're dating back to when I was born. I was born in 65. That's 60 years. They never done anything. Now we're trying to put Local 212 on the map. We have pushback, but that pushback is not going to stop anything. And this place has to be integrated, period. It will be.
Sounds like you've made a lot of progress. We're really proud to hear that.
We're trying.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll take some questions from the audience. I see there's a couple that have already come in. Do you have any good tips on identifying good potential leaders from among the membership? So are there any qualities or traits that you look for that you say, okay, that person's going to be a good leader. We need to develop them. And feel free to chime in if you have any specific answers.
I'd say just keep your eyes and ears open for the ones that are asking the questions, the ones that are sharing the information or the answers with other people. And honestly, the ones raising their hands. That's low-hanging fruit. That's not the only answer. That's the first answer for me. And then honestly, as you're doing your job, so solving problems or just sometimes just visiting the departments and so on, and you're having those conversations with people where you're going to them and they're not always coming to you, once they start to open up to you and trust as an individual and build those relationships with a few hundred people, they kind of show themselves. Then you lead the horse to water from there.
If I can add on, I yes, I definitely agree with what JJ said. I also think that I the people can lead in different ways. So, for example, I recently had a meeting with someone that I wasn't sure if they were going to be part of the collective action team or not officially. And when I talked to them about potentially orienting new workers or doing walkthroughs, they said, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. I am really introverted, which was kind of pissing me a lot. And they're like, I don't feel comfortable talking to people I don't know. But then when I talked to them a little bit more about sort of the conversations they've been having in their own lab, I was surprised to find out that this person had already talked to the people in their lab that were not union members about becoming members. And so clearly this is a person who, has respect in their lab and, is a leader in their lab. And maybe they're not going to be the most extroverted person who's going to, go to, walk around and talk to everybody and do that kind of thing. But I think that it's still really valuable to identify the people who have the respect of their coworkers and can sort of lead by example in addition to like maybe leading very vocally. So like having those like supporters, like visible supporters is also really important.
Anything you want to add, Paul?
No, I mean, I agree with what the lady said. Actually, I aggressively go out there and I seek them. If I see something in somebody, um, like we have a driver's room right outside of my door, is where most of our drivers congregate at. And I'll listen to some of the conversations they're having. A lot of it has to do with the union, either the dissatisfaction with the union or the satisfaction with it. A lot of them will talk about some of the safety policies because, as far as the truck driver is concerned, which most union stewards don't have to deal with, I have to deal with DOT policies also, Federal Motor Carrier, all that type of stuff. And you just sit up there and you listen and you see who you think might have potential. Some of them that started, I will simply tell them this: look, you have potential for this. Let's say you've already completed your 90 days, so you're a brand new employee. I want you to, as I used that term before, I want you to get a lay of the land. In about a year or so, I might ask you, do you want to get involved? And then you'll have conversations with them. They'll come into my union office, and we'll talk about labor rights, labor policy. We might open up the our international or local agreement and go through some things. And believe me, that happens a lot. Um, and that's how you gauge. I remember having some say, well, they have to come to you if they want to get involved. And I looked at him like he was insane. What do you mean? That's not how that ever works. If they come to you, that's great. Bonus, bonus. But you go out there and you seek these people. It's important. You have all of y'all should have an idea. I'm gonna say you'll have no idea. Of course you would. On how many people who don't want to get involved. Oh no, I don't want to ever do this, man. That's love. It just looks like too much aggravation. If we had that type of mindset, we would never get anybody in here. And then who's gonna bargain 20 years down the line? I'll make it 10 years down the line. Like I say, I'm about to retire in a minute. You go seek these people. You listen to their conversations, in that case, out in the driver's room. You see what they're talking about as far as if they feel something's unfair as far as what's going on at the shop/terminal. You see what type of conclusions, what type of remedies they're coming up with. And then you just have a couple conversations with them. Hey, come on in. I'd like to talk to you about something. Then you ask them a few questions about labor and see if they're really want to be engaged. You'll know right away. Otherwise, they'll walk out of that office quick. And if you feel that they actually have a good grasp of this and they actually act like they want to do this, if I'm saying this correctly, then you start nurturing them. You don't push them. That's how you get these people ran away. You talk to them now and then. You give them a few things out of your local agreement or international. You explain to them how your job works here at your particular shop. And you just now and then, like, especially with the people that I say that are under 90 days, that showing promise within that year, don't give them some more information. Like the Julie Pierce that I was talking about. She's one of my alternates. I brought her in here, only brought her in on the weekends. I never put anybody in a pressure cooker. Pressure cooker is Monday through Friday. You never do that unless you really know, unless they had past experience, they really know what they're doing. You never do that. You put them on a week. We do work 7 days a week here. You put them on a weekend. You let them do the normal stuff. Somebody comes in and asks, did they punch in time? General questions about what's in the local agreement that they may not know about. You never do that right off the bat. You give them about 2 or 3 months. Then you give them a Wednesday or a Thursday. Then at that point, there'll be a grievance that comes up. I'll grab a grievance out because obviously I have copies. I'll make a copy of that grievance. Then I'll take a magic marker and I'll wipe out their names, their personal information that's on that grievance. Then I'll say, here's this grievance. This was unjust discipline. Can you write this better than me? Do you have any better ideas on how this grievance would have more of an impact on how I've written it? Here's the grievance. All the names and all that person's personal information has been redacted out by the magic marker. Take it home. Got Windows Office? Good. Here's a thumb drive with the grievance on there. Take your time. Bring it back. Let me see how you're doing it. That's how you do this stuff. Gradually, slowly. Never put them in a pressure cooker because that'll frighten the hell out of them and they don't ever want to do this. Put them on something that's very easy and slowly work them up. Then start getting them into grievance handling. Here's a grievance. Tell me how you would do this better. Then other things come after that.
Exactly. Move towards the core of the bullseye, one slow step at a time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take another question. I appreciate people sticking around a little bit past the hour. Our next question may be a little tricky one. How would a steward deal with members who have lost trust in the union? Maybe they're afraid of retaliation. Maybe they were disappointed in how a situation was handled by the union. How would you address this?
You're not always going to have success with that, but that comes back for me to one of the core things of you as a steward, you as a member, you as anybody. reflect upon the union. So if you can do a little better, communicate with them, get with them to open up. If you're able to find out what lost their trust in the first place, that would be huge because sometimes it really is one thing. Maybe they were terminated and brought back and they weren't happy about how long. Maybe they missed overtime that they could have swore should have been theirs. Whatever the story is, and there's a million of them, you never want to invalidate their story on that, but you want to be able to educate on policy once you get them opened up. But first and foremost, you need to build that relationship and have them trust you. Because once you do that, when you're going out of your way, and you need to breadcrumb it almost just like I'm sorry, like Paul was talking on giving them just a little bit of time, bring them one step closer in the circle, but start with saying hi, even though you know they're apathetic on the regular. And then opening up the conversation a little bit to the point you're talking about workplace things and then issues and then getting their input on issues or asking them if they have any problems or let's say there are problems, even though you're very well equipped to handle it, asking them what they would like to see done. And even if you're not delivering that in itself, showing them that this is and it's supposed to be not just a one-way street where you're the elected person, so what you're doing what's you're choosing to do goes. It's supposed to be member driven. First empower them if they weren't before, and they very well might not have been before, and then show them that that system works. It might take time. It might take you doing it right, but failure for a while. But you don't stop trying, and you make sure that it's out there for them to see and hear.
Can I chime in for a minute?
Of course.
And I promise back I wouldn't get too far into this, and I won't. A lot of people that are disillusioned or just not into unions, even though they belong to one, it's usually the union rep they had to deal with. Corruption sometimes, or just a union rep not giving a damn. And that'll jade them in a minute. What you do as a union rep, if you're a good one, you show them how you're not that person. They'll know. And there's 3 union stewards here: mornings, afternoons, nights. Obviously, I'm afternoons. And I have the morning union steward doesn't even care. He won't be the best union steward you ever seen till 2 months before the election. The rest of the 3 years, he doesn't have an answer for him. Doesn't even talk to anybody. So you do better. You'll get, in my case, you'll get people from the morning shift calling you. Yet I'm afternoons. You'll have a union steward in this case. I like the man. But he spends more of his time smoking cigarettes than he does doing his job. It's not time to steward. You do better. Your alternates. You explain them. They'll know, not explain. They'll know from looking at the first and the third shift union steward. In my case, that damn, they don't do anything. So the question comes back up again. What are you going to do? Do you want to be a union steward that actually really wants to do the job? Do you really want to do this? You see how those two are. You see how this shift is on second shift and the work that I do. Believe me, I bring a lot of my work home with me sometimes, and I still enjoy that work, even though it's my time. My 8 hours are up, and I'm still going home doing stuff, but somebody's got to do it. You get rid of the bad apples. You get rid of a lot of the anti-union stuff coming in from a lot of workers. You have a lot of union reps that don't want to do their job. They just want to be able to get off from putting a motor into a 1500. In my case, driving a truck. Again, you got to want to do this. You go out there, you seek the people that you know are righteous, and you train them. Sometimes you have a couple that are disappointed the hell out of me. I know one of them for sure. You still keep going. That was 1 out of what, 6 or 7? You find the people that really want to do this job, and you will get rid of a lot of that anti-union sentiment. Thank you again.
Sydney, anything to add?
Actually, yes. Sorry, and I'll keep it short, but I think I actually have a good recent example of this working through this with some workers. So as I mentioned, the University of California is very much in an austerity mindset right now. So really just trying to say, like, we don't have any money, we can't pay anyone, you know, whatever, the whole nine. And so right now we'll call them a sector because it's not worth getting into like the ins and outs of what their department is, but they were the sector of workers that is facing significant cuts and changes in policy to their position. And this particular sector of workers tends to have like distrust in the union, like as sort of a third party. And one of the workers who's in this sector that's facing these potential cuts wanted to schedule a meeting with the union stewards. And I think that right before the meeting actually happened, other members in the sector messaged this worker that wanted to meet with the stewards and said, like, we shouldn't meet with this person, with the stewards. Like, these are all the things the union has done in the past, like, you know, all of this stuff. And this worker said, no, I want to meet with them. Like, I think that we can benefit a lot from collective action. And so myself and the other steward that were a part of this meeting, we went into the meeting like fully knowing that a lot of these people were distrustful of the situation. But I think that what sort of just to echo what both Paul and Gage were saying, like, you have to walk the walk. Like, I can only control what I can control and the type of steward that I want to be. And so I think that this other steward and myself went into this meeting. We made a real effort to not let the workers kind of third party the union and say, we want the union to do this. Like, we all are the union, right? Like, we're all postdocs, we're working together to make sure that this issue is heard. And I think that they came out of, I heard feedback after the meeting that they were surprised by like how supported they felt because, you know, maybe like JJ and Paul were saying, the stewards that they had interacted with before seemed more dismissive of their sector than we did. So I felt really good that we were able to make sure that they felt heard and that they felt like we were taking action on this issue as people in positions of leadership. And I hope that going forward, you know, that starts to slowly move the needle. And I think that that's sort of, like people are saying in the chat, you know, all you can do is just make sure that people feel heard. And the more that we can do that, I think the more that we can change the sentiment.
Thank you so much again for sharing all of your stories. I know we're a little bit over time, but I appreciate everyone taking a moment out of their Sunday to join us today. The last thing I'll share is a little plug for our organization, UAW Member Action. We are now open to membership. So if you're interested in joining our network of stewards and committed people and attending future events like this, please visit our website for more information, memberaction.org. We'll have a list of upcoming events, including webinars and in-person skills trainings. So you can help build your organization, your union, again, from the ground up, really empower the grassroots and bring this network to other stewards that you work with. Thank you again for attending. Again, a round of applause to our stewards. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. I hope everyone has a great rest of their weekend.